Hello, I'm Timothy Perfit. I want to talk a bit about how to get a 3 terabyte drive working on your Mac with 10.8.3. So you can see I have a 3 terabyte drive installed into this Mac Pro, and it's been formatted as HFS Plus with a single partition. It's running on 10.8.3, so it should have full support for a 3 terabyte drive. But as we'll see, it only works if you convert the volume to a core storage container first. So quit disk utility and open up Boot Camp Assistant. We'll see the introduction, then we'll hit continue, and you'll see it says that it cannot be partitioned or restored to a single partition because it's not been partitioned correctly. That's not actually true. It's because it's not a core storage volume format. So we'll go ahead and convert it and then allow us to use it. So we'll quit Boot Camp Assistant, and then I'll go ahead and launch Terminal, and I'll give the command to convert the startup volume to core storage container. So the command is disk utility cs convert /. So I'll make the window a little bit bigger, put in disk utility cs list, and you'll see there's no core storage logical volumes found. So I'll now convert it. Do a disk util cs convert / and hit return, and it'll start converting it. And so what it does is it creates a core storage group, adds a physical volume to that, and then will eventually mount a core storage volume. Since the startup disk, we can actually unmount it, remount it. So you can see it did create the logical volume group and then added the physical volume to it. It can't actually mount it until we restart. So we'll go ahead and restart now and get Boot Camp Assistant work. You can see it doesn't work currently, but after reboot, it'll be mounted, and then you'll be able to actually see it. So now we're back, and we'll look at the listing again. So if we do a disk utility list, you'll see that we have a logical volume group, which contains the one physical volume, and then that presents it as a logical volume onto the desktop. So it's exactly what we were expecting. So this is kind of the standard out-of-the-box configuration if you had a 3 terabyte iMac, but since it's a Mac Pro with a third-party 3 terabyte drive, we had to do it ourselves. So that was very simple. So now if we open up Boot Camp Assistant, we'll see that we can now go ahead and actually create the Windows partition. So we'll click continue, don't need drivers, and we'll go ahead and add a partition now. So you can see that there's, we'll divide it equally, so we have 1 terabyte, 1.5 terabytes on one side, 1.5 terabytes on the other side. We have to put in the Windows install disk, but once we do that, it'll go ahead and start partitioning it. One of the things that I need to do so we can look at it after it installs is I'll go ahead and open up Terminal, and it'll block the reboot process, and then we'll be able to go ahead and probe a little bit and see what it looks like. Alright, so the partitioning's done. So now we'll look at Terminal. We won't let it close because it's trying to reboot. And we'll actually do a disk utility cs list. And you will see that we now have a couple of new items to look at. Make this a bit bigger, and we can see is that again we have the same type of listing, but now we have 2 physical volumes. One's that's disk 0 slice 2 and one that's disk 0 slice 5. The first one is around 700 gigabytes and the second one is around 800 gigabytes. So if we add those two together, we have about 1.5 terabytes, which is what our Mac volume would be. But this is the interesting thing. The first one is disk 0 slice 2 and the second one is disk 0 slice 5. And so if we actually look at what the partition table looks like, we can see that we have on our main disk, we have a EFI partition, which is always there. It's 200 megabytes. Then we have the first Mac partition, which is 700 gigabytes. Then we have the recovery partition, which is a small partition, 650 megabytes. Then we have a boot camp partition. And so this is the one that has to be before the 2.2 terabytes. And then we have the additional Mac pieces, which is another 800 gigabytes. So that's that disk 0 slice 5 we were talking about. And then finally we have a boot OS 10 partition, and that partition is just a small partition that has some boot files on it that allows core storage to be bootable. Now you can see the 2 core storage ones, disk 0 slice 2 and disk 0 slice 5, are combined by core storage and presented as disk 1, so that you have this Apple 3T drive that now looks like a single volume, but its underlying storage is 2 actual core storage physical volumes. So a couple of addition things that are kind of interesting here. If you look at the core storage is around 700 gigabytes. We have the recovery drive, which is small, 650 megabytes. And then the boot camp partition, if we add all those together, we'll notice that it's just below the 2.2 terabyte limit, which is what was required to get Windows to boot. And you'll also see that Windows is the last of the first 4 partitions, so they'll be bootable. Another thing to notice is if you add up the 2 core storage types, 800 gigabytes and 700 gigabytes for disk 0/2 and disk 0/5, you'll notice that 700 plus 800 is 1.5 terabytes, which is exactly what we wanted, what we specified for the size of that Mac volume. So that kind of gives you an overview of what we're looking for to see what is happening with Boot Camp Assistant when you have a 3 terabyte drive. It's using core storage to be able to combine volumes together, so it looks like a single Mac volume, but in fact it's actually multiple physical volumes underneath, and it still allows the Windows partition to be within the first 2.2 terabytes.